Hi, this is Wendy. Welcome to my channel. I hope you'll enjoy the project that I have for you today. There are a lot of granny square cardigan patterns out there. This is my version. And the thing I love about granny square cardigans is they're just the perfect project. They tick all the boxes. Easy to make, easy to wear, don't use a ton of yarn, and they work up pretty quick. So they're just a fun project for a beginner or for an experienced crocheter too. I'm going to use two colors of Bernat satin yarn. This one is Fern and this one is Aqua. I've used it before. They're just kind of my favorite colors right now, so I'm going to use them for this cardigan as well. I should mention too that I'm using a 5.5mm hook for this project. So I'm just going to sketch it out for you so that you can picture what we're doing before we begin here. A lot of granny square cardigans are made with multiple small squares, but this one is just a few large squares. And all the pieces start with a small square and build from there. So we're going to start by going in the round on a square like this, then divide for the armhole. Something like that. So after we finish this square, we're going to step up and start working around like this to build up the side, or the body piece is what I call it. Okay, so this will become the front edge and this will become the center back. So we'll need two of those. The sleeve is a simple square. We'll fold it in half to make the sleeve. If you're making the larger sizes, we'll add a few rows on each side to make it more of a rectangle, because you don't need a longer sleeve, you just need a little bit wider sleeve. So we will need two of those, and again, it's just a granny square that's going to work around and around and around like that. And for the hood, it's going to be 4 small squares. Something like that. Okay, this is the top of the head, and then these 3 squares get joined together. And you'll see the assembly when we get there, but this will be the part that joins to the neck portion at the top here. Okay, so that's how it works. All of them start in the same way with a smaller granny square worked in the round. And for this sweater, I'm going to switch colors every 2 rows. You can use more colors if you wish. With 2 colors, you don't have to cut the yarns and you can just carry them, but it is entirely up to you if you want to make it more colorful. Okay, so we're going to start with that body section. And I'm just going to make my starting loop. This is a worsted weight acrylic yarn. I should have mentioned that. So for the size I'm going to make, which is the medium large, you'll need about 5 balls of each, so 500 grams of each. The full pattern is on my Etsy channel. You can just follow along with the video, but if you'd like to see the written pattern, it's available there on @mycrochetteacher.etsy.com, and the link's in the description below as well. Okay, so let's get started. All of these parts start the same way. We're going to make just your basic granny square, and I'm going to chain 5 to begin. We'll call this one color A, and the green will be color B. So after the 5 chains, slip into the first chain to join. Chain 3 for the first round, and then we're going to chain another 3, so a total of 6. So the first 3 count as a double crochet and then a chain 3 corner. Now I'm going to make a corner group, which is 3 double crochets, chain 3, and 3 more double crochets. So to make a double crochet, yarn over, into the ring, pick one up, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Chain 3 for the corner space, and another group of 3. Yarn over, through, and pull one up, yarn over, go through 2, yarn over, go through 2. If you need a little more practice on double crochet before you start this project, check out my video on how to do double crochets, where I slow it right down and go through it step by step. But you will easily be able to make this once you get hang of the double crochet, because that's pretty much all the stitches there are, double crochets and chains. So in the ring, 3 double crochets and chain 3 3 times. And then 2 more double crochets, because that first set of 3 chains was our first double crochet. So we just need 2 more here. Yarn is kind of splitty, but we'll get through it. Then slip stitch into the 3rd chain. So there's the first one, second one, third one. Go through there, pull through the work and through the one on the hook. So there we have 4 groups of 3 double crochets separated by 3 chains. That's our first round. So if you're following along on the pattern, going to round 2, I'm going to slip stitch into that space, that corner space, and work a corner group. So chain 3, 2 double crochets, three chains, 3 more double crochets. Same thing in the next corner, 3 double crochets, 3 chains, 3 double crochets. I'm going to do that in the next 2 corners as well, and then I'll come back when it's time to join. Okay, at the end of the round, I'm going to join into the 3rd chain of my starting chain, but I want to switch colors. So I'm going to join with the 2nd color, color B. Just leave the blue behind. Chain 3. Then work into the corner, a corner group of 3 double crochets, 3 chains, 3 double crochets. Then the pattern says to put 3 double crochets in the next space, and when it's referring to space, it's talking about the gap between the 2 groups of 3 double crochets. So 3 double crochets in the next space goes right between those 2 groups on the previous row, like that. So you can see how this works, right? 3 double crochets in each group, 2 groups in the corner divided by 3 chains, and no chains between the double crochet groups on the sides. So I'm going to continue in that same manner all the way around. When I get back to the beginning, because I started with 3 chains here, I'll be putting 2 double crochets in this last space and joining to the top of that chain. I'll be back in a moment. All right, there's the end of round 2. I'm going to join into the third chain of the starting chain to make the last group on the side. It sometimes wants to curl up a little bit, but don't worry about it, it will flatten out. Now, of course, this is the front of the work. We want to make sure that we keep all the color changes on the back side of the work. For round 4, chain 3 again, and go right over to the corner. And again, same thing around, 2 groups in the corner divided by 3 chains, and 1 group in each space down the sides. So on this round, I will have 2 groups on each side between my corner groups because there are 2 spaces here and here. Now keep in mind, if this is moving too fast for you, you can always pause and go back. The other option is to go to your settings on YouTube and slow it down. You could also turn on the closed captioning while you've slowed it down, and then you can make it whatever speed is comfortable for you to see what I'm doing, and you can slow it right down to the point where you can follow along and keep up. But of course, I'm not going to show you every stitch, so feel free to pause and come back to it when you've caught up to the end of the row. So at the end of row 4, I'll come back and then we'll switch colors and start row 5 or round 5. I've been saying row, but it's technically a round because we're going all the way around. At the end of round 4, work 2 double crochets in the last space, join to the chain 3 with the new color, with color A. Then I'm going to slip stitch into this space, do my chain 3, that slip stitch into the space is optional, but I think it just makes things look a little bit tidier, especially when you're switching colors. And in the same manner, I'm going to do 3 double crochets, chain 3, 3 double crochets in each corner, and a group of 3 double crochets in each space down the sides. On round 6, you're going to need to pay attention because we're going to switch things up a little bit. Instead of doing the chain 3 and jumping right to the corner, we're actually going to put a 3 double crochet set in this first one. And the reason is when we divide for the armhole, we have to be in the right spot. So I'm going to shift it over a little bit. So for round 6, 3 chains, 2 double crochets in the same space, and then go to the corner and continue around. And at the end of the row, of course, in this last space, you'll have a group of 3 and then join to the top of this chain with green because we're going to switch for round 7. So that's the first 6 rounds done. If you were making the extra small or small size, you will not do the next 2 rows. So you'll skip over 7 and 8 and go right to 9. So you can jump ahead in the video if you're making the 2 smallest sizes. For the rest of the sizes, the medium through the 5XL, we're going to add 2 more rows before we split for the armhole at row 9. So for round 7, we're going to go back to the way we did it in the previous rounds, chain 3, and then go to the next space. Work all the way around, and in the last one do 2 double crochets and join. If you're following along on the pattern, we're starting round 8. Round 8 is worked in the same manner as round 6, where you start with 3 chains and do 2 double crochets in the same space. So 6 and 8 are done like that. The rest of them you just do 3 chains and then go to the next space. So this is the last round before we're going to split for the armhole. It's done in the same way. The corner groups with 3 chains in the middle and a group of 3 double crochets in each space on each side, ending with 3 double crochets in the last space and joining to the top of the chain. I will come back at the beginning of round 9. We'll switch to blue and I'll show you how we begin our armhole section. There's 8 rounds done. If I flip it over to the back, you can see how I've carried my yarns along as I've switched colors. Of course, you can work them in if you want to as you go, but I'm fine with that. It'll be on the inside of the sweater. Round 9 switches it up a little bit again because we're going to leave a space in the middle for the armhole to divide. I'm going to leave the width of 2 groups of 3 in the middle. So I'm going to start with a chain 4. This counts as a double crochet and a chain 1. Then work a double crochet group of 3 and a second one before the corner. If you're doing this small or extra small, you'll only have 1 group before the corner, but all the other sizes will have 2, and then I will work all the way around until I get to the last corner, and then I'll come back and show you how to finish up this round. Okay, so a chain 4 at the beginning and then continue as per normal. At the end of the round, do 2 groups of 3 double crochets to match the other side, and then we have to match our 4 chains, and we're going to do that by chaining 1 and making a double crochet in the next space. Okay, so it looks like that, leaving the middle 2 groups of 3 uncovered and skipping that middle space. So we're going to stop there. That's the end of the round. For round 10, chain 3 and turn. So now we're going to start working back and forth instead of in the round. In that first space at the base of the chain 3, work 2 double crochets for a cluster of 3. Then go all the way around as before, and at the end, when we get all the way around and back to this side, we're going to end with a group of 3 double crochets in this last space right there. Okay, so I'm going to leave you to it, and I'll come back when I finish round 10. Okay, so coming up to the end of round 10, like I said, I'm going to do 3 double crochets in that last loop. I'm going to work around the green thread to carry it up a little more neatly, and then to switch colors, I'm going to do that on my last pull through. You probably know that it works more neatly to switch colors on your last pull through so that the color on your hook works for the next stitch. Okay, and then we're going to switch directions again, turning around, and like we did 2 rows ago, chain 4 and continue around. So I'm going to do 2 green rounds, and then I'll come back and give you the measurements for the armhole for the various sizes. So I hope you are enjoying this if you're following along and you're starting to see it come together. It's pretty simple, and it's a fun pattern to make. And because it comes in multiple sizes, it can work for just about anybody. It's a fairly generous, loose, comfy fit. Okay, so I know I said 2 rows, but I have to show you how to end this row, so I decided to come back after 1. So after this last group of 3, what you're going to do is chain 1 and then do a double crochet into the top of the last stitch, which is the chain 3 from going the other direction. So it looks like that. Okay, so you can see this matches. We've got 4 chains there and a double crochet and 1 chain there. This row starts and ends with 3 double crochets in the space from the row below. So from here on out, you're going to just repeat those 2 rows, keeping the color sequence intact, right, 2 of each, and continue until you have enough length for the armhole. Now here's where you're going to want to grab your pen and paper. So you're going to continue alternating those 2 rows. And when the length of the armhole is 7 inches, that will be long enough for the extra small and small size. For a medium large, you'll need 7.5 inches. For the 1, 2, and 3X, 10 inches. And for the 4 and 5X, 11 inches. All right, so here's my body section all done. The sleeve opening is here in the middle, and then it will fold over. This will be the front edge, and this will be the center back. And I'll show you in a little while how we assemble it all. I'm going to do one more thing to finish off this sleeve edge. We're looking at the inside here at the moment. And just to clean up these threads that I've carried up the side, and also to provide a better edge to sew the sleeve onto, I'm going to do 2 single crochets in the side of each row, going all the way down the armhole. So in each row, I'll do 2 single crochets like that, going right over top of those loose threads that I carried up the side, and that just tidies up the edge like that. I'll show you on the one that I've finished here. There's the edge. I'm going to flip it over and show you the front, or the outside rather. Okay. So there's the armhole finished. So pretty simple, just a big granny square with a cutout for the armhole. 2 of those for each of the body pieces. And the overall width is going to end up at 19 inches for an extra small, 22 for a medium large, 27.5 for the 1, 2, and 3X, and 30 inches wide for the 4 and 5X. Okay, so when you have 2 of those, we'll move on to the sleeve. So moving on to the sleeves, you're going to do the first 8 rounds exactly the same as you did the first 8 rounds on the body section. For round 9, instead of splitting for the armhole, because of course we don't want that on the sleeve, you are just going to continue in the round. Chain 3, then go to the next space, work your group of 3, continue around, and when you get to the end, work a group of 2 and join, just like we did for round 7. Round 10 will be just like round 8, where it starts with a chain of 3 and then 2 double crochets in the same space. So you're going to alternate between one row where the chain 3 is at the end of that group, the next row where the chain 3 is at the beginning of that group, and you'll just alternate like that. So repeating rows 9 and 10. This is row 9. Row 10 will be like this one. Continue, and this is where you're going to want to grab your pen again and paper. For a extra small, continue until your square measures 17 inches from side to side once you've flattened it out. Okay, so 17 for an extra small, and 18 inches for all of the other sizes. And then I'll come back and show you how we add a little bit extra on for the larger sizes. Make 2 of those and you will have your sleeves. Now, what if you need the bigger size? Well, we don't want the sleeve to be longer. We only want it to be 18 inches long. So to get a little more width for the larger sizes, what you're going to do is for the 1, 2, and 3 XL, add 4 more rows on 2 sides of the sleeve. So you end up with a sleeve that's about 22 inches wide. And for the largest size, you're going to add 6 more rows on each side to get a sleeve of about 24 inches wide. So just take your yarn and go into one corner and join. There we go. It was a tricky one. All right, chain 3 and do 2 double crochets in that corner space. And then it's very straightforward. Just continue across doing 3 double crochets in each space. When you get to the end of the row, do 3 double crochets in this final space, and just like we did at the sleeve opening, you're going to chain 4 and turn and go back. So it's exactly the same. Switch colors if you need to, which in this case I need to switch to the blue to maintain the color sequence. Turn the work around just like at the sleeve edge and work back. So do that for a total of 4 extra rows on 2 opposing sides of the sleeve for the 1, 2, and 3X, and 6 extra rows for the largest size. Okay, so you'll end up with 2 rectangles that are 18 inches long for the length of your sleeve, but a little bit wider to give you some more space in there. Okay, now we're going to move on to the hood. If you'll remember from our drawing at the beginning, the hood is made of 4 squares joined together. It is optional, but I am going to show you how to make it. I think it looks good. So you will need to make 4 squares of 8 rounds exactly the same way that you did for all the pieces you've done so far. So this very simple sweater, you're basically making the same squares over and over. So we'll need 4 of those. And I decided to do them in a solid color. I just like the way it looks, but of course you can do them in the alternating stripes if you want. And they will go 3 side by side like this, and 1 on the top. And then when you sew them together, these 2 sides will come together to form the top of the hood, right? So we've got this part at the neck, and this part wraps around to the front a little bit, and then this is the top of the hood. You'll see more in the assembly how that will come together. Okay, so how do we assemble this thing? Well, first of all, we're going to have to sew the sleeves together. And just the only thing with the sleeve is make sure that you are sewing it so that it's 18 inches long, right? Don't put your 22 or 24 inch side as your long side. You want that to be the width of your sleeve. So it should be 17 inches long for the smallest size or 18 inches long for the other sizes. And just sew along this edge doing a whip stitch, or I guess if you wanted to, you could crochet it together. So taking your yarn needle and a piece of yarn, take your 2 pieces, work your thread in a little bit on the back, up to the corner, leaving a longer end to work in later if you would like, and just stitch those 2 sides together. Keeping it corresponding so your groups of 3 end up beside each other. So you can go under both threads or just one, it's entirely up to you. And stitch the sleeves together. And again, in my pattern, I've got diagrams and explanations with drawings of how to do the assembly. So that will really help you out. Okay, so I'm going to put the rest of this sleeve together. The other one I already have sewn together like that. The next thing is to sew the center back seam together. So taking your 2 body pieces, put them right side up, making sure that they're both facing up the same way, the sleeve openings are corresponding, and stitch it together right down the center back seam. Following that, the next step is to sew the 4 hood pieces together with 3 side by side and 1 above the middle one, keeping the right sides facing the same direction. Because you've worked them in the round from one side, they will have an inside and an outside. Then line up the hood at the top of the joined body piece, making sure that the midpoint of the hood lines up with the center back seam. Then fold the sides of the hat to meet in the middle. With your body pieces, fold the front pieces to meet in the middle as well, and you'll pin the shoulders together. The point where the hood meets the shoulder needs to be marked. So put a pin or a stitch marker through that and then sew the shoulder seam from that point out to the top of the armhole. So for this size that I've made, that's about a 4-inch long seam, but for the smaller size it will be slightly shorter, and for the larger sizes it will be slightly longer. So this is why you need to put your hood at the top so that you know how wide to make those seams. Then sew the hood in place. So the piece that you've folded over in front will end up being fastened to the front part of the sweater and line up with the front edges. So the outside edges of the hood will line up with the front opening edges of the sweater, and then you'll stitch from one front opening edge all the way around the back of the neck and then back around to the other opening edge. Remember again to keep the right sides facing the same way so that the outside of the hood is matching the outside of the sweater. Next, you'll sew the top square of the hood to the sides of the hood, and the last thing to do is to sew the sleeves in place. Now, if you wanted to add extra length at the bottom of the sweater, you can easily do that using the same strategy that we used for adding width to the sleeves. And if you would like to fasten the sweater together at the front, you could make some cords at the base of the hood just by using a double strand of yarn, chaining it into a cord to tie the sweater together at the top. Alternately, you could add a button and some kind of a loop to go over the button, or some kind of a frog fastener or hook fastener at the front, or just leave it unfastened. That is up to you. So I hope that you enjoyed this pattern today. If you did, please like and subscribe. Remember that you can pick up the pattern in my Etsy store if you would like to have the rest of the pictures and diagrams and the details for yourself. And drop me a comment. Let me know if you made it, if you enjoyed it, if you made it for someone else, and let me know what you think. Thanks for joining me, and have a super day.